Hello, and welcome to my Hearthstone Let's Play series. This is Northstar. Hope you're well, taking care of each other, and being kind to yourselves. So, new expansion coming up, or just came out? I don't know. Looks like they increased the cost, but also attack Dr. Stitch and so. I don't have that card. Can't use the card, but I didn't know how it works. Looked it up. Looks good. Apparently, you get a death rattle for a 5-cost minion. When the 5-cost dies, you get the 3, and when the 3 dies, you get the 1. So it's a high value card, although there's a real delay, so it probably does better with like a Death Knight where you incentivize to lose minions. They I think increased the cost of this. Maybe they decreased. I'm not sure. Be nice if they would say what it was before. Emergency meeting. Get 2/4 crewmates. Put a ram demon that costs 3 less between them. What? That's insanely overpowered. If it's saying it summons 2 4/4s for just 1 mana. And if it gave you 3 cards in your hand, that would be typical. They make the epics and the legendaries overpowered. Constant power creep in this game. Anyways, ooh, the Everdrifter. Each turn this is in your hand, gain 2 ram, choose 1 choices. Again, ridiculously overpowered. Exarch. Uthar, if you're building a starship, get 3 different arcane spells and reduce their cost by 2. That's very specific. Defrone Beast dies, get a ram, legendary beast, and pass. It costs 2 less. Yeah, these are all way overpowered. Dormant for 5 turns, then you turn the storm main into the bright to waken 2 turns sooner instead of 1. That's probably... It was maybe slightly below the moniker before. This is in the few legendaries. It wasn't really worth it. Sometimes it's nice when you get it randomly, but rarely worth adding to your deck. Now they've just made it too powerful. Too easy to feed minions. Yug in the box. Of course, I've often found it was bugged and wasn't actually consuming the minion to the right. Has Fire Ram spells. I think I have that. Oh, shoot. They... Arcwing Pilot? Oh no, I was going to say... What was that before? Did they bring down its cost or increase it? I used that in my mage deck, so... That's annoying. It's just a rare. They like to nerf rares and buff legendaries kind of thing. Oh, they reduced its cost. Okay. It was already very good because if you cast a spell alongside it, then you get a 3-cost minion and you deal 6 damage, basically. 2 3-cost minions and deal 6 damage, which is already very, very good value for 7 mana. Because, for control, it's not very, but it's very fast acting, and you can, of course, spell burst to get even more of them, because the second Arcwing Pilot has a spell burst, so... Ingenious Artificer. Next turn you cost. Play Precious Mana Crystals, Uriel, Beacon of Hope, Rush, Deathrock, get 3 different Wybrams from an older timeline. I think they reduced the cost of this. Since... Restore Wayfarer, Divine Shield, Backer, and Death Rattle. Reduce the cost of Wybrams by 1. Too many changes. Possibly keep track of them all. Announce Darkness. Replace your hero power in non-Warlock cards with Warlock ones. They cost 1 less. Abduction Ray. Get a random demon, reduce its cost by 2. Repeatable this turn. I think I have that in one of my decks. Or almost did. Alright. Fun. I'll check the Abduction Ray, because I think I might have almost added that to my Demon Hunter deck. Or messed or had it. Maybe I removed it because it wasn't quite enough value. Actually, let's see what the changes are, because of course I don't show what it was before. Abduction Ray. I'm pretty sure that's a cost reduction. Yep. Used to cost 2 mana, and it was sort of worth it because it was repeatable this turn. Very, 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 very worth it now. Definitely, if it's repeatable and only costs 1 mana, much greater odds of being able to repeat it. Or Master Blackthorn. Destroy all cards that cost 2 or less in both players' hands and deck. This can mess with enemy aggro decks sometimes. That's a negative card draw for the opponent. Demon Hunter, Priest or Shaman, Death Knight, Druid, or Warlock. Of course, those don't overlap. Ranked, Brawl, Arena, Battlegrounds. Not quite ready to do the Arena runs, though I'm saving up the tickets. Use your Her Power. Spend mana. Epic Pants does way too many demon runs. I mean, arena runs. It's all chaos. Murzon's plan, whatever it was, this caused total mayhem. Everything's just converging, collapsing into impossible jungle as the fall. Timelines are coming to one single conclusion. I mean, staying once more, blah, blah, blah. Saw that before. All this does is get me a skin. A druid skin. Lunar Winara. Probably get this if I do some matches here. I'm not pre-purchasing this, I just want this off my screen. We're off. Alright. Gotta produce content for you folks because, did I miss something? Or maybe I thought I crafted this. Maybe I didn't before. Weird, I thought I had one of these. Maybe it was a silver. A golden common, and I disenchanted it. Think I would recraft it if I decided to use it. Might have been that. I don't remember. But yeah, I gotta produce content because I'm disabled with long COVID, struggling to survive, to get my channel to where I can monetize. Means lots of stuff here. It's bloody hard on Twitch. Of course, everything is hard these days. Beam me up, Bessie. Alright. Well, this is mana neutral. This is a repeatable card draw. Actually, no, reduce cost by 2. It's... Well, I could actually use both. Extremely aggressive. I wasn't so sure about the Terror Guard Escapee. This can sometimes be the difference between enemies being able to trade and not. I think I'm gonna get rid of this. Price with the Abduction Ray. Cool. So feeds minions to decks that rely on to enemy strata games that rely on having lots of minions. So it's just not great. The Terror Guard Escapee. Is that currently for a Warlock deck? For an odd Warlock deck, no less. That's weird. Jeez. Is there something in my water? Sorry. Sometimes stuff sells in the mouthpiece. Bits of nuts or dirt or whatever. I don't know. Yeah, so it's hard to act like everything is just normal when US is sliding into fascism. There's been a lot of nonsense with that lately. It's been on my mind, but you folks come here for an escape. I know everything particularly intelligent to say this very moment, so it's just I don't know, I had 29 followers before, I think, on Twitch. Now I have 28. Yeah. Bots get purged periodically, so. Alright, need to do Warlock a little. Probably Death Knight, Warlock, Demon Hunter stuff. I was going to do Mercs mode. Keep me to do my Merc stuff, but run out of energy. And then soon-ish, I want to return to my Hearthstone 4 Let's Play thing, but basically there was a day where I went way too hard between doing multiplayer thing with Joe and other stuff. Okay, got it. Yeah, between a multiplayer with Joe and other stuff, I ended up doing about 7 hours of streaming in a prolonged, like a 32-hour day cycle when you include sleep. Like it was up longer, an extra 6 to 8. Well, I was keeping the proportions. I was up an extra 6 hours that day, I think. So it's less impressive than it may normally seem. Or no, maybe it was 8. Or so it's an even longer cycle when you count extra sleep. And I was like lying down a lot between the videos, like sometimes hours straight, and a lot of sugar, a lot of caffeine. And I pushed myself too hard post-exertion wise. I couldn't produce pretty much. I didn't produce a single video yesterday. I said this before. I can only average about 3 hours of production a day because of my long COVID. Government saying, oh, you could work a normal job with this disease. Just have to adapt to something. That's a lie. They're in bad faith. The fascists just want to deny my Social Security, my disability, and I'm clearly too sick to work because I wouldn't even be able to work half-day shifts, like 4-hour shifts most of the time. To get 4 hours of work done, period, on a really, really good day, I might, with the energy it takes to commute, on a really, really good day, I might be able to do it over the course of 8 hours. Where I spend half the time resting, or more than 8 hours, 9 maybe, which nobody's gonna want you in a workplace for 8 or 9 hours till we get 4 hours of work done. Not always going hard the whole time, just even the time I can be at work, or in a wait versus need to lie down in a darkened room, and that's on a really good day. If I have a day where I have like that 7 hours of energy, which would be like if I commuted somewhere like 5.5, 6 hours in an actual workplace, I would suffer horrible post-exertion malaise those days, and that would be over the course of like 9-10 hours, that amount of work, mind you. So nobody wants you around for 10 hours. That normal shifts are only 8, and that's to get in, maybe 5.5 hours a day work on a really good day like that, and then and they would have to pay me at a reduced rate, or only for have me clock in and out with time clocks if they were willing to make the disability accommodations around my need to rest. And then they would have post-exertion ways. They wouldn't be able to come into work for most likely 2 or 3 days after, with how bad that gets. This is a terrible disease. People understand post-exertion ways isn't just like, oh, you're tired. No, it's like your body doesn't function anymore with temp. Not at all. I think I'm using Cornelius in a... Hold on. He's almost throwing one of these. No, Gromosh. I already lined up the parties. Cariel. Cornelius. Okay, just assign him to train. happen that often. And I think Cornelis was on the later, and he needs to tank up. Chromie, she has the Chaos Theory thing, so if she falls, she just comes back, it restarts that round with a little extra health. She's a little lower priority to everyone, the whole party, more health. She's a little lower priority to train than the rest with the stats. Alright, anyways. Ranked. I probably got some achievement from that. Anyways, that's an exceptional day. Usually, like, and by usually, I mean like, I might get one of those 5.5 hours over the course of like 9, 10 hours, days, once a month. Vast majority of the time, I'd be lucky if I was working a job to come in and work 2 hours and go home. If I'm at home and I don't have to come in, maybe 3 hours. But that's if I'm assuming that YouTube streaming and Twitch streaming is no more tiring than real work. Air quote real work. I treat this as a real job, but and the reality is this is less draining. That's why I selected it. It's one of the least draining things for the nature of my disability. So reality is 2 hours with a commute, 3 hours without of this translates to most jobs to like 2 hours from home or 1 hour with a commute. It's not what's known as substantial gainful activity. The government has no basis to fight my disability. They're monsters. They want to control the world. They've been building an empire. Oh, well, I mean, it'd be easier to comment on my Hearthstone 4, but I know what I was thinking I wanted to mention. I guess the ranked season isn't over yet, because let's double check the odd Warlocks cards before I go in. Syria. So I've been doing a Syria Let's Play series for Hearthstone 4. It's funny, I mean, it's inevitable that would have, of course, made me... I selected Ram Nation, that was the one I selected. And I was thinking because of strategic location I want to do it, but it, of course, gets me thinking of Syria in the real world. So, it's fun how the Western media lies to you, spins things, propagandizes things, even when it talks about real facts, leaves out key pieces of information. So Assad, for instance, he was a murderous dictator, that's true. But the Western media tried to portray him as a leftist, and he wasn't. In fact, a lot of the reason that there were groups that rebelled against him is because he moved away from socialism. So his father was a socialist, and actually well beloved by the people. Well, not well beloved, but fairly well liked. But over time, his father, later in his years, and then he passed on the government to his son when it was supposed to be a republic, so that was a violation of Republican principles. Like, he co-opted democracy, because there was supposed to be a kind of democracy. Socialist democracy in Syria, and then father passed on government to son. That upset a lot of people. Then the son proceeded to undo socialism, that is, to privatize businesses, to cut welfare systems. It was air quote Arab socialism, so it was never as pure as actual Marxism, but it was a socialist system, and he undid it. And then he started favoring certain ethnic groups over others, when the whole point of the Syrian, this kind of, the Ba'athist parties, which was both the political ideology of Assad and Saddam Hussein. Saddam Hussein, of course, was particularly murderous and vicious, and but the ideology that represented, because ideologies are bigger than one man, good or bad. It's always finding people like say, oh, like they equate communism to Stalin or something. No. Ideologies are much, much bigger than one man for good or evil. Otherwise, you have to equate the United States to like Ronald Reagan or Nixon or some other murderous psychopath who's been charged in the U.S. Henry Kissinger. You have to equate the entire U.S. to Henry Kissinger, who's just the worst example of everything the U.S. has ever been, and responsible for like 10 million deaths worldwide between the genocides he sponsored. The U.S. is, I think, has done 9 since then World War II. I'm trying to remember how many Kissinger was responsible for. I think it was 6 of those 9. And then he also was responsible for cutting welfare systems and public health systems in other countries. Austerity measures that killed several million more people, so add up to about 10 million lives that Henry Kissinger was. So if you judge all of capitalism by Kissinger, that wouldn't be fair. But anyways, Assad's father was less murderous than Saddam Hussein, but the whole ideology that represented was unfortunately more authoritarian than even like the Soviet Union, because Arab socialism, It's not Marxism. It's not ideologically well based, but it was an ideology of no ethnic favoritism, no religious sectarian favoritism. So there's this whole Sunni Shia divide in the Muslim world. The Ba'athist leaders were specifically secular. They were specifically, I guess, agnostic, that divide, that they were not going to favor Sunnis or Shias. Compared this to Bahrain, which has an absolute monarchy that's Sunni, where 98% of the population of Bahrain is Shia, and they oppress the Shia majority horrendously. And at the same time that Syria happened, and during the Arab Spring, and Libya was getting bombed by the US, there was an uprising in Bahrain, and Saudi Arabia just rolled in there and killed all the protesters, just murdered them all, and paved over the square where they were protesting. And it's been theorized there was a deal between Saudi Arabia and the US, where Saudi Arabia would turn a blind eye to US bombing Libya, US turned a blind eye to Saudi Arabia doing what it did in Bahrain. Because this is the sort of thing you would expect the US to normally object to. Expect not really, because Bahrain was a US puppet state, and Indonesian mass murders, genocide shows we don't object to these things when it's our puppets that do them, only if it's our foes. But anyways, the Baathists were strong welfare systems, nationalization of industries, particularly oil, high taxes on the rich, generous social programs, a strong military, secular government, not religious, not, when people claimed that Saddam Hussein was funding Al-Qaeda, you knew those people were lying. If you knew anything about it, you had to know they're lying just from them. You didn't even have to look into it, because Baathists like that, Al-Qaeda wanted to murder Saddam Hussein. They had openly a warrant, they would give money to whoever killed him, because one is a group of religious fanatics, and the other is a specifically secular dictatorship, anti-religious fanatic. They hated each other. Baathists and religious fanatics had nothing to do with each other, but now Trump has sided with, he's set up this ISIS Islamist guy, former ISIS Islamist guy, and he's fine with this guy taking charge of Syria. Suddenly he's turned his back on the Syrian Democratic Forces. So now I have a lot more respect for these people. I had my concerns about them before because they were acting as CIA puppets, but now that the US has abandoned them, now they're really fighting for democracy. Now that America is no longer co-opting their movement, now of course they're probably going to get the rear handed to them when now they finally deserve to win. Now that, they're not likely to just end up perpetuating more evil. Because, if the US dominates a country, we're just going to perpetuate neoliberalism, often right-wing dictatorships. It's surprising we didn't side with Assad, because he was a neoliberal dictator just like Pinochet. But he was friendly with Russia instead of us, so he was Russia's Pinochet. Pinochet is a dictator we put in charge in Chile. So, if he had been our Pinochet, we absolutely would have protected and defended him. Alright, Minari Nasher, Infernal Stratagem, Hive Queen. This is the weirdest one, the Zerg. I haven't ever gotten a chance to use it long enough to really see if it's worthwhile. Maybe I'll pull it here. And the Feral Gibber, people always prioritize getting rid of this. I mean, it's like a 0 mana stats with the ability to draw cards repeatedly, so it is useful, especially for just making sure that you can always have something you can play. There are strategy games that can really overdo this and just win based on it, but it's not always a terrible card to have. In a deck that's about having lots of numbers, and then stuff like this that can buff entropic continuity. This is a 1/2 that gives a draw. So normally you'd expect this to have 1/1 if it gives a draw, but it's 1/2, and it can merge the stats in, which then, the magnetic thing is almost like a rush minion, because you can add its stats to any mech the turn it attacks. And they can both benefit from Dreambound Raptor, so. Doubling Imp. And it's Wrathguard. I do like this. I do like Relentless Wrathguard very, very much. I don't have a second copy, do I? But yeah, nope. If I did, I'd probably Oh, for the love of, could they just send a relenting smile guard for once? No. Yeah, but like Trump has decided to back a Islamist dictator in Syria. Therefore, I hope the Islamist dictator gets his rear handed to him, and I hope the Syrian Democratic Forces, which originally had their origins in actually anarchist and socialist elements, especially anarchists, because in the Arab Spring there was this disillusionment with Marxism because the Soviet Union collapsed. And mind you, not because it didn't have a strong economy or some nonsense. In fact, the Soviet Union had the second highest long-term GDP per person growth rate in the world for most of its history, and the Central Asian republics, the Muslim parts of the Soviet Union, did especially terribly after the Soviet Union collapsed. I mean, they were to some degree being subsidized by the rest of the Soviet Union and helped along in their development, and they had lower literacy rates and stuff than most of the Soviet Union. When the Soviet Union collapsed, their poverty rates went up to an average of 60%. 60% from like 1 or 2% or 5 in one of the republics, which is not great. 5 is a bad number, 1 or 2 is good. A lot of capitalist countries have 3 to 4%. Sometimes it's worse, sometimes it's better. But the U.S. has a higher one. I think the U.S. has a true poverty rate after you get around the way we fudge numbers like 8%, which is pretty much the highest of any developed capitalist country in the world. Most European countries, they sit at like 3-4%. That's a more normal number. Soviet Union had 2 to 5% in its republics. Usually on the lower end, better than the U.S. It went up to 60% in the Central Asian republics. So anyways, people across the North Africa and the Middle East, they got disillusioned with Marxism with the collapse of the Soviet Union, and anarchists took off all across the region. A lot of former Marxists became anarchists. And so when people rebelled against Assad, because they rightfully hated the guy, he was a brutal dictator, and he had undone anything that was a redeeming, virtue of his government, because he was now practicing racism, and he had cut all the welfare systems that people relied on. And he didn't stand for anything ideologically. Like, even socialist countries that are generally terrible, if at least they are on the side of socialism, they're not going to be threatening other socialist countries and working to destroy socialism. They're going to be opposed to capitalism on the right side of history, At least that's how these anarchists are going to see it. So they rebelled, but then the U.S. co-opted it by pouring money in. And the U.S. always had a little bit of a tendency to use the Kurds, although the Kurds had high levels of anarchism in their population, but more the ethno-nationalist Kurds and the Islamists, there was always an element of favoring them that was a little suspect in the Syrian Democratic Forces, but it was never this bad. As Trump just openly supporting like the 4 ex-ISIS guy, and they did fight ISIS. Like moderate Islamists versus radical Islamists, the radicals being ISIS. The U.S. would only fund the moderate ones. Turkey as well, which is a U.S. ally, so sort of ally. Alright. Barrel Gibber, power overwhelming abduction ray. Cool. Power overwhelming is great for Gibberers because people always murder them. If I even get a chance to use this.
I see you've brought none will survive.
Watch this person just murder this feral Gibber the turn I played it. Whenever I do this, people prioritize getting rid of it. If they have any control card, they will. Partly because if they don't immediately take it down, then there's 2, then there's 3, and I can always keep it 1 or 2 in my hand. I don't have to have them all in the field to make it more of a threat. I don't dare have them all in my hand past this. 2 mana, there's a chance they might not have yet drawn something. Health drink.
Ooh, bet there's something great inside.
Mystery winner. Oh no. Draw 3 cards that cost 1 and have stats easily of a 2 cost. It's getting 6 value for 1 mana. That's ridiculously overpowered. One of the things they really do 8. That looks like an elf there who's, or maybe he's running from them. Really? Because I was sitting here looking at the artwork of the Tremors card. It's not an elf. It's some of the elves were cursed. It looked like it had the big thick legs. I'm trying to remember. I don't know. The elves, they were like cursed for siding with the wrong side or evil or something. That were very early in the history of the Warcraft world. I looked a little at the lore up once and I forgot a lot of it. These are much edgier elves than like Tolkien-esque ones. Although they have elements of like, we like to shoot bows and we like the forests. Some of them are more like high elves, the blood elves in particular. Or much more like, we build big cities and we manipulate stuff and we'll even enslave a holy being just for... They're not great. Alright, well. I can start another match here. I'm going to play well. I mean, that person would have probably wiped the floor with me. He probably just wanted a quick win at this rank, though. Fired.
Gul'dan
Still suffering post-exertion waves from that 7-hour day.
The wild hunt begins.
I'm not entirely sure it was worth it.
Shall be mine.
My risk-benefit, cost-benefit analysis decided a while ago that pushing myself like this was slightly better than not. I would get more productivity on one day, but I'd be really tired towards the end of that, like, days where I managed an unusually large number of hours. And then the next day, I'd usually not be able to produce hardly anything, or nothing, sometimes even. And then the day after, quality would suffer. But content is content, in terms of volume. And there are days sometimes where I just don't have the energy to do anything, even without post-exertion plays. That was the tiebreaker. 2 1-drops, a responsive, not a bad thing. Could be a 2/6 for 3, for instance. And a Nexus Prince, but I don't have spells, but I can hold on to it for a little. Depending on what I see here. I mean, I at least have the coin. It's most valuable when you have a lot of cheap spells.
I see you've brought game.
None will survive.
There's 2 Trollocs. We're back to back there in the deck of legends. It's whatever it is. It's weird.
Time is short.
And Whizbang appears somewhere in the deck. The nice thing is that a 40 health odd Warlock upsets expectations about being easy to take down to get lethal on. So when they're mulliganing, they're less likely to mulligan appropriately. Which is good because it's hard to actually build an effective deck. Unless you have a ton of dust to spend on crafting.
I wonder.
Almost out of time. Toys are much more fun to bring.
Lifesteal, huh?
Time is short.
might be. Hello, Melissa Gerard? That might looks like maybe a bot scammer, maybe a real user. Already poked in, said how's it going, disappeared. Probably. Well, I'm not sure the viewer count here is accurate. Oh, 2 viewers. Okay. Yeah, it wasn't accurate. So this person is around. How's the stream going? It is going poorly. I'm very tired. Just do this stats. I couldn't care much less about the lifesteal.
Time is short.
I'm just doing that to get the stats of a 2-drop. And they were expecting a 1. Anything that... Deception is the meta that I like to make use of. It's the way I can compensate for my weaker selection of cards to build decks with. And it wouldn't work if I was ever like a high-ranked legendary player and people have my decks all memorized. Unless they changed them very regularly. Oh. Hold on, copy the Gibber.
Time is short.
Person possibly unplugged. But never trusted it. He might just be laying time out because he's got enough. He's waiting for high cost stuff. You know, I could play the Zerg.
As a gracious host, I will tend to you. How entertaining.
Ooh, a giant Gibber. This is something out of my worst nightmares.
As you command. No, no, no!
Let's do it on this. Make it a giant Gibber.
Job done.
Protect against any kind of crowd control. I don't care. I think this person is AWOL. So. Oh, someone's selling their artwork. Time out. I do love these strippers. They're just so... Oh my.
As you
On the now, we part.
time is short.
It's fun just playing because I think I need to play a certain amount of mana for one of the quests for a skin, so it doesn't matter. But it's possibly a bot, possible intention to ranking. They're getting reported either way. I'm not sure which. They're either harvesting data on what cards are currently out there. Wait, Infernal Stride game lasts. I thought it was ended at the start of next turn. The fun thing is some of the programs that was the minions will collect the Gibber over and over and over. If it doesn't, they probably find the programs. It's modified version of Hearthstone Debt Tracker. But there are people who, and then they post online what's currently in what rank range, what cards are being played. It's unfair. It shouldn't be allowed. I mean, it isn't allowed. Alright, well, I hope you all enjoyed this video. It's excessively long, but I taught so long I won't cut it. I wish you all the best. Take care of each other. Be kind to yourselves and may you always find a guiding star to lead you home. Until next time, it's Northstar. Do and best luck to you all.